Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are ESPN's senior writer Mark Ogden and The Sun's chief sports writer Dave Kidd. Hi guys, welcome to you both. We'll chat to you shortly. First, let's get to those back pages. And we're starting with The Sun, their headline, top trumps, as Pep Guardiola and Arne Slot both boast about their respective frontmen. To the Express, Alexander Isak leads their paper with Eddie Howe saying the striker's refusal to play ruined his relationship with him. The Guardian leads with the Manchester derby, calling Ruben Amorim's current role as Manchester United head coach the impossible job. What about the Mail? Ian Ladyman focuses on the Manchester derby rivalry on the inside sport pages of the Mail. The headline, how City's council house kids knocked United off their perch. On the inside page of the Telegraph sports section, Oliver Brown asks, has Guardiola outstayed his welcome? And the Times sports section takes a different approach, leading with Michael Atherton's exclusive interview with six-time snooker world championship runner-up Jimmy the Whirlwind White. Well, let's go to our guests and start with the Mail. Ian Ladyman's piece focusing on the rivalry between Manchester United and Manchester City, and the headline, how City's council house kids knocked United off their perch. It's an interesting debate, isn't it, Mark, as to where the balance of power lies between United and City going into this weekend's derby.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, on the pitch, it's still, I think the balance of power is still with City because of their recent pedigree, their recent record. United are definitely a team that's searching for some form, some kind of path back to greatness. And City are obviously in a bit of transition, but their success is fairly recent. Having read Ian's piece, I think that the tone of it is about have City now overtaken United off the pitch as well? Because obviously, if we had this discussion 10 years ago, it would be complete no. Man United, the biggest club in the world at the time, outstripped everybody in the Premier League in terms of revenue and the attractiveness that they had. But City slowly and gradually have crept up on United. They now earn more in terms of revenue than United. They get the better players. And I think what has happened is over the years that right at the outset, City, rather than target United where they were weak, they targeted United where they were strong. They went after United very strongest elements, that the commercial revenue. They were the destination that all the players wanted to go to, Man United, and City made it themselves. So I'm not sure you can say right now that City are a bigger club than United, but if you look at recent history, recent pedigree success, it's hard to argue that they're not better than Man United. And I suppose United have got the history, but that will only last for a certain amount of time. The last 10 years, there's a lot of kids that have grown up supporting Man City because of all their superstar players, and United haven't had that many. So gradually, City are catching up with United, but I'm not sure that they're yet. But in terms of on the pitch, they've been overtaking United a long time ago.
Dave, where do you stand on this debate? Do we go with recent success and trophies or the broader history here?
Yeah, I've never really entirely convinced about the whole debate about the bigness of football clubs, which I think the league table says an awful lot at the moment. Actually, United are ahead of City, but it's only 3 games in. I think City have been a far better football team than United for the last 12 to 15 years, and that's still the case. But City are, as Mark said, in a huge transition. I mean, we had a big transition in January, another big transition in the summer. It feels like too much change to me. I don't see City winning back their title this year, but in terms of the balance of power in Manchester, City clearly, football terms, still well ahead of United, who are still floundering. They've had years and years of terrible transfer business, still trying to recover from that. Shipped out another load of players this summer, a lot of whom they spent a lot of money on. It's a chaotic club, United. City has been run very well. I'm not sure about the council house kids reference. It seems like the Abu Dhabi funding probably had a lot more to do with it. But City, I mean, it's a very well-oiled machine. I think we might talk later about Guardiola's future, because there was also a feeling that it could be, the end of that era as well coming up.
It's really interesting, isn't it? And if we turn to The Guardian, Mark. The headline there, The Impossible Job, and it goes through some details of why it is such a challenge for whoever is at the helm at Manchester United. You've got to be a statesman, a media performer, a player guru, a fan favourite, and so on. Just going into this game, I wonder, Mark, who do you think this is bigger for, this derby, Amorim or Guardiola?
I think it's bigger for Amorim. I mean, in terms of Guardiola, he's rock solid at Man City until he decides that he wants to leave. I just don't see any situation where City will decide that it's their decision to get rid of Pep Guardiola. So this matters a lot more for Ruben Amorim, and also because if City lose, we know that Pep Guardiola's got it in to turn it around. We know he's got the track record, but with Ruben Amorim, it's still unproven. And all those qualities you listed there that you need to be a Man United manager. One thing that wasn't mentioned was you need to win games, and he hasn't won anything like enough games. And you have to say at times he's kind of inflicted that bad record on himself with his stubbornness and his refusal to change his formation, which doesn't suit the players, which doesn't suit the team. And I guess it was the same at the weekend, it was 3-4-3. It doesn't really work. A top manager would change that and get some results and then look at it again when the situation is stabilised. So Amorim hasn't done that. So it's not an impossible job, it's a very hard job, but he's making it harder by the fact that he's refusing to change, to become more pragmatic and just get some results that would ease the pressure and make it a much easier job for him to do.
A lot of talk about the goalkeepers going into this particular derby, Dave. I thought it was interesting listening to Amorim in the news conference earlier, actually just laying his cards on the table saying, I'm going with Bayern in goal. I was a little bit surprised by that. He's got his big money signing just come in. Did you expect, Dave, him to go with Lamens at the weekend straight away?
Probably as a keeper, yeah. But I think we're talking about the relative sizes or the sort of successes of United and City. I think City have brought in possibly the best shot stopper in world football, and United have brought in a guy who's not even one of the top 4 goalkeepers in Belgium. He wasn't in the most recent squad, so that says quite a lot for me. Bayern is not a great goalkeeper. He is vulnerable on crosses and set pieces in particular. Probably a little bit surprised, not seeing much of Lemons. So difficult for me to judge, but you kind of would expect him to come straight in because clearly he's been brought in as a bit of a panic buy. I think this wasn't, this is because of Onana's continued dodginess and the fact that Bayern hasn't been at all convincing when he's played.
Mark, is this the right move, do you think? Would it have been too much pressure to throw Lamens in straight away in such a big game, a huge occasion?
Well, I'm pretty sure that's part of Ruben Amorim's thinking that, this kid, he's 23 and like Kiddo said, he's not even in the Belgium squad right now. So he's not got the experience or, the pedigree at this stage to go into Manchester derby. Now, it could go both ways, couldn't it? He could play and have an absolute blinder and set him up to be one of United's best goalkeepers in recent years, but he could go in there as well and throw one in, as Onana and Bayern have done recently, and it could crush him, So, Bayern was signed 2 years ago for £4 million because he was cheap and available on the last day of the window. That's the situation that United had, and that's the calibre of the goalkeeper we're talking about. He's not very good. I mean, I saw him at Fulham recently. He was all over the place in the sense that he couldn't deal with crossing to the box, any physical side of the game. But Amorim knows his shortcomings, but I just think he's trying to protect Lamens at this stage by just saying, look, bedding a little bit and see where we go. But what United should have done is they should have signed Emi Martinez from Villa and Lamens and then, work with the two of them and then say to Lamens, look, work under this guy. He's got the experience, he's got the pedigree, he's got the big game mentality, and then ship out Bayern as well. But they haven't done that. And I think, United's mistakes in the past have been signing the wrong players. I think on this occasion, they didn't sign the right goalkeeper.
We'll talk about Gianluigi Donnarumma at Manchester City in just a moment. Before that, Dave, I want to go to your paper, The Sun, and look at the goalkeeper situation just at Manchester United for a couple more moments, because the headline on the side there, Amorim, pressure piled on, alluding to the pressure perhaps got to Andre Onana. But at the same time, do you feel the pressure's really on Bayern as well? The times he's played this season, he's not exactly looked convincing.
No, he hasn't. No, I agree. I was at that game at Fulham. He looked very poor on crosses and set pieces on that occasion. That's such a big part of the game in the Premier League in particular. He wasn't signed as a number one. He isn't a number one. He's never going to be United's long-term number one. Lemons will probably come in sooner rather than later. I don't know how much time he's had on the training ground with the defenders. Will come straight into an international break. A lot of the United back five will have been away on international duty, so that may be the case. I'd always want stick a new player in. If he's going to be the number one, just stick him in. You see managers come in and decide to sit up in the director's box for their first game rather than go in the dugout. I don't know why people don't just get straight down to work, but that's just part of the modern game, I guess.
Moving back to you, Mark, and talking about Gianluigi Donnarumma and Manchester City. Guardiola didn't reveal whether he's going to play on Sunday or not. Surely he will. Do you think he is the kind of signing that can kickstart City's season?
It's hard to say because obviously Ederson was such a big part of their game plan. You know, the big 50-yard punt to Erling Haaland who would sprint and score the goal. But they've kind of changed that and moved away from it a little bit with James Trafford, who must feel like he's being kind of shortchanged a little bit. I've been signed for City in the summer, being told that he was being groomed as the number one, and then Donnarumma comes in, who's only 25, 26. So, I think, look, if you're paying that money for Donnarumma, he's the world's best goalkeeper. You're not going to ask him to sit on the bench. You know, Pep Guardiola hasn't got any reason to sit him on the bench. He'll start on Sunday. He has to start on Sunday because it wouldn't make sense that you made this big move for this great goalkeeper and you stick him on the bench while the kid in goal hasn't had a great start to the season and you persist with him. So, you know, Pep Guardiola is a manager that's made big decisions in the past and he won't shirk making this one with Trafford. He'll put Donnarumma in. I'm pretty sure about that.
Dave, let's talk to you about Pep Guardiola and his future at Manchester City. The Telegraph reflect on this. Piece from Oliver Brown, always a very interesting read, his articles. And he actually says here, has Guardiola outstayed welcome, and goes on just underneath that to say the City manager's demeanour is of someone whose heart is not fully in the Premier League title fight. Does any of that resonate with you, Dave?
Yeah, I don't think it's a case of outstayed his welcome with the City hierarchy, as Mark actually alluded to earlier. You know, he can be there as long as he wants. He's Pep Guardiola. He's won it all several times. Won the Premier League many times, 6 times I think for City. So I don't think it's a case of outstayed his welcome. You know, I don't think the club are ever going to push him towards the exit door. I think Ollie in that piece makes comparisons with Arsene Wenger. I think we're an awful long way off that. Wenger went for about a decade in decline before he finally was edged out of the door. We're nowhere near that yet. There's talk of Guardiola, I think, in the piece saying that he'd been to watch golf and tennis during the international break. And this is a guy who's generally obsessive about football, but you know, the idea of actually having a break away from your job for a week or two sounds perfectly sensible to me in any walk of life.
Yeah, you can have a break and come back re-energised, can't you? Mark, where do you stand on this? Does anything that Oliver Brown is saying in the Telegraph here, ring true to you at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, Ollie mentions the fact that in the past, Pep has taken time out. You know, after Barcelona, he had a year out just to kind of recharge his batteries and he went to Bayern Munich. But, you know, I'm with Kiddo on this. The comparison with Wenger, I'm not quite with because, you know, Arsene Wenger did cling on for quite a long time. And I think the difference there is that Wenger was so attached to Arsenal. It was his project. It was his baby almost. And he had a real emotional connection to the club. I don't think Pep Guardiola's got that with Man City. I think, you know, he's done his job and he's been fantastically successful there. But I don't think he'll walk away with the kind of the regret that Wenger walked away from Arsenal. I think when Pep's ready to go, he'll go. I don't think anyone can keep Pep Guardiola at Man City, not even the owners. I think so. He will stay for as long as he wants to do, and he wouldn't have stayed this season if he felt that he was onto a losing streak or that the new players weren't good enough, because ultimately it damages his reputation. So he'll think he can win the league this season. Not sure he can, but it is a bit early to write him off. And I think that he's still young enough to come back and bounce back. So yeah, I think that we've got another year at least of Guardiola, I think, at Man City.
Mark, Dave, thanks for now. Much more to come when we return. We'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including this in The Sun. Top trumps as Pep Guardiola and Arne Slot both boast about their respective forwards. What about this in the Telegraph? Jamie Carragher's column on Forest and their owner, Evangelos Marinakis. You're watching Back Pages tonight. It's welcome back to ESPN's senior writer Mark Ogden and The Sun's chief sports writer Dave Kidd. Dave, let's go to you and your paper, The Sun, as they hone in on who is the best striker. This came up in the news conference that we heard from the managers about, was it Alexander Isak, was it Erling Haaland? Slot was talking about the benefits of Isak and Guardiola obviously backing his man Haaland. Do you think one striker has the edge over the other here?
Yeah, it's an interesting debate. I think Haaland's got more of the body of work at the moment. His goals record certainly better than Isak's. It'd be interesting to see when he goes to a truly elite. Now he's at a truly elite club like Liverpool. How his goals record will compare with Haaland. I think Haaland is more of an old-fashioned centre forward. Isak's got a bit more about his game. He can certainly drift wide left and be very effective there. He's got obviously a touch of a Thierry Henry's about him. They're different sorts of players. They're both elite. Scandinavians seem to be breeding some pretty good strikers at the moment. Gyökeres, I think, will do well at Arsenal as well. So, yeah, interesting debate. I think I'd have to side with Guardiola and go for Haaland at this point, but Isak's close, I'd say.
The Star also concentrate on this debate as well. Slightly different in the sense they're also talking about Eddie Howe and his relationship with Alexander Isak. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Mark, Erling the Greater is what they have on the back of the Star. As Dave nodded to there, Haaland's figures are quite amazing, aren't they? But do you sense that with Isak moving to the reigning Premier League champions, he's going to score a lot of goals? He's going to have a great record there.
Yeah, I mean that would be the obvious thought, but obviously Mo Salah will get his goals. All the other strikers they've got will get the goals. They've got a lot of talent. Ekitike, Gakpo. They won't be short of goals, so maybe the goals will be spread around a little bit more. I think Isak is a better all-round player than Haaland, but if you want somebody to score a goal or 20 goals or 30 goals, you go for Erling Haaland. He's a phenomenon, isn't he? He's a guy that has scored goals wherever he's been, and he's the classic out-and-out centre forward. But as Kiddo says, Isak drifts around a little bit more. But they're both fantastic strikers. But if you had £100 million in your back pocket and you said, right, you can have one of these, it'd be Haaland, because you just know he's going to score the goals that will win you trophies.
And Dave, actually, it was quite interesting, the Telegraph look at the physicality of some of the big summer signings as far as the strikers are concerned. Today's strikers are hulks or stickmen, so lean and athletic, if you like Alexander Isak, or the muscular physique of Victor Gyökeres. I mean, if you were given a choice between the two, the sort of the physical strength or lean and maybe a little of extra pace, what would you go with?
That's interesting. Depends on the individual player, I would say. I mean, everyone I think loves an old-fashioned centre forward, your muscular type, I suppose. You'd love to see a big centre forward putting himself around, going in physically against centre halves. I think there's always, I think the old school football fan always appreciates that. But as I say, Isak's long been compared to Thierry Henry. He's probably the greatest Premier League player of all time. He's got a lot of the same attributes, and he's thrilling to watch as well. So yeah, I'm not sure if I had to sit on the fence in terms of general physical types, but I think Isak's ahead of Gyökeres at the moment, but Gyökeres I think will do very well at Arsenal. I think he is the player that they need, and I think he would improve them a lot.
The Star also concentrates on Isak, but actually on his relationship with Eddie Howe and how it deteriorated towards the end. Mark, it is fair to say, I think, that Eddie Howe has been really diplomatic, hasn't he? He's been asked so many times about Isak and the impending move to Liverpool. Has he played it just about as well as he could have done in the circumstances, Eddie Howe?
Yeah, pretty much. I think when this all started to explode in the summer, Eddie Howe was kind of very protective of Isak. He basically said, the Celtic game that he missed, which kind of triggered all this. He said that he wasn't fit to play, wanted to shield him from the speculation about the move. When the reality is that we know prior to that there was machinations going on, and Isak had already told Little that he wanted to leave. So Eddie Howe's tried to protect the player. Then he's tried to protect the club, and I think you could tell when Eddie Howe was speaking at times, he looked kind of personally hurt by all this, how he felt let down by Isak, how he looked pained by it all. So I think even now he still feels that let down by Isak, and the fact that he couldn't mention Liverpool by name today shows you how kind of angry he is with the fact that this played out in the way it did. But, Eddie Howe has handled it quite well. He's got two players in now which should score some goals for Newcastle. Obviously, this is injured right now, but he did all he could. He did the best he could in a situation which was pretty much impossible because, like you said, it was up to the owners if Isak was going to be sold, and that's what happened in the end.
The headline on the Express, strike out, also concentrating on Howe and his relationship with Isak. Is there any danger here, Dave, that there could be a little bit of a hangover for Newcastle United following this long drawn-out Isak saga?
Yeah, and they've had to play the first three games of the season without a proper centre forward. They failed to score in two of those games. They haven't won yet. So they're playing catch up already in terms of being where they want to be in the Champions League places. And this is, as Oggy just said, is already injured. Voltemada, He's a young player. Again, we're talking about size of strikers. I think he's like a basketball player, but actually he's a talented boy. It's certainly not just a big lump. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be difficult it's always difficult to bed, nearly always, when a player comes in, a particularly young player from overseas. It takes a little bit of time, and Newcastle haven't really got that much time because Isak, left them in the lurch of the first 3 games of the season. And I'm not surprised that Eddie Howe's relationship with him changed, given he was their best player and he refused to turn up to work for a month.
Mark, let's talk about Nottingham Forest and Sky Sports pundit Jamie Carragher's column in The Telegraph. Marinakis, a walking hand grenade. Some strong comments here from Carragher. Describes Marinakis as a bit of a pantomime villain, and yet he admires him. He's a character that continues to divide opinion, isn't he, Mark?
Yeah, I think he divides opinion amongst the Nottingham Forest fans, because obviously they weren't very happy when Steve Cooper was sacked a couple of years ago, but obviously they changed their mind very quickly when Nuno did such a good job. But on this occasion, with Nuno being sacked when he did a fantastic job last season, getting Forest back into Europe for the first time in 30 years, he's built a team that is very good at what it does. But then Marinakis has brought in a guy who won the trophy with Tottenham last year, but plays a completely different way, and a way last year which almost got Tottenham relegated, but they were the team above the relegation zone. So, maybe Marinakis has pushed it a bit too far this time, and he's backed his own judgment a bit too much when he maybe should have listened to other people around him saying he's sure this is the right move. So, but, he's brought success to Forest in the sense they're back in Europe and they're challenging at the top end of the Premier League right now. But, yeah, I think time will tell whether he's made the right call with Postecoglou.
We've got about a minute or so to go, Dave. I just want to ask you about this as well. Marinakis is a passionate character. Ange Postecoglou's a passionate character as well. Do you sense there could possibly be a bit of a clash between these two?
Yeah, I think Marinakis, could have a clash with anybody, quite frankly. I think Postecoglou's way of playing football is very different to Nuno's, so there's going to have to be a lot of change there, and that's difficult. Ange wears his heart on his sleeve. He will say whatever he feels, but I agree with Carragher. Marinakis, this is a great soap opera that we're all compelled by, and a soap opera needs villains, and he's a great sort of anti-hero. Marinakis, larger than life character, storms onto the pitch, makes can make some pretty headstrong decisions at times, but I think he adds to the sort of gaiety of the nation really well. We're watching the football.
Just in one sentence, if you wouldn't mind, Mark, is this partnership between Marinakis and Postecoglou going to work?
No, I think it'll end in tears in 18 months' time.
That is Mark's prediction. We'll come back to you in 18 months' time and see what happens. Mark, Dave, thanks very much indeed. Great to have you with us on Back Pages tonight. A fascinating debate as ever. And if you missed any of the show, you can catch up at hour. The show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And a reminder, we will be back at 10:30 on Monday, and indeed every weekday as well.